Hey guys, now as requested over on our Facebook page, today we're going to do a collection overview. Now 2018 has been pretty mental and I've not done one of these videos since 2015, so obviously 3 years, a lot has changed. Some guns have stayed, some have gone. So basically all that you're going to see here is just a collection of pictures, a load of montage of pictures together of all the guns that form the collection, my collection going into 2019. Now I'll try and go into some in detail, but some will just skip past. Obviously if there's anything you want to see again, feel free to comment. But anyway guys, without any further ado, let's make a start. I think we'll start with where the collection began. So the first pistol that ever entered the collection really was the Cybergun SP 2022. Now this is obviously a Sig Sauer. Nice looking little pistol, it shoots really nice, it's not blowback or anything like that, but for sentimental reasons, I mean I just love it. It's where it all started and it's what kick-started the rest of the collection. And as you'll see there's a bit of a theme that will emerge in 2 seconds. Next up is the X5. Now this was the first blowback pistol I ever bought. Absolutely love it. It's a solid performer, kicks like a mule, and yeah, it's a really trusty and true replica of the real X5. Now this for me was probably one of the worst Sig Sauers that I've got in my collection. It was the P226 Navy. Now this was the first that Sig Sauer themselves released. I've had nothing but bad problems with this. It's a really nice replica. It does look really good. It's just definitely one for the shelf. For me personally anyway, I just don't shoot it. I can't shoot it, which is why I haven't reviewed it. But anyway, it's stayed in the collection. Thankfully, it's not the only one they made, and they recently came out with a new P320. Now, I actually really like this pistol. It's got a really neat magazine system. I've done a review if you want to check it out. It's not the prettiest gun in the world, but I mean, the real version of it, it beats the Glock to the American contract. And it's a really neat gun. It's well worth looking into. It's a good replica, and yeah, I really like it. So that, again, that's why this one stayed. Now, as a bit of a Bond fan, it was no wonder that there was going to be some Walthers along the way. So obviously we've got the PPK, I've got a PPQ, the CP99, the CP88. Now, of all of the guns in my collection, the Walthers are by far the most comfortable ones to shoot. They all have really ergonomic grips, and to be fair, all the replicas that I've got here in front of you today are all really faithful replicas of the real pistols. Now, unfortunately, I'm yet to be able to find any of the Walthers really to actually shoot the 9mm versions. It is on my things to do list, and I have to say I absolutely love the pistols. So we will kind of look into that. And just what notable mention really here as well is obviously the CP88 at the end here. If you want to get a decent replica pistol that fires pellets, this is the gun to go for. I'm yet to find one that's better than this pistol. Now before we get into my Colts, I just wanted to give this one a mention. Now of all the pistols I own, this is the one that comes out of the box the most, and it's the CZ75 PO7 Duty. Now this thing is really comfortable to shoot, it kicks really nicely, and the sound it makes is incredible. As replicas go, if you haven't come across this one, I'd really recommend just going and trying to find one. Now here we have the Tanfoglio Witness. Now this is the gun that we can blame for the, quite frankly, obscene amount of limited editions. Now we will go on and show 2 of mine in a second. However, this is the gun that started it all. They are really solid replicas, obviously made by KWC. And once you've seen one, you've pretty much seen the rest. But anyway, we'll go into the rest of it, and we will show you a couple of my limited editions. Now, first up is the Uzi. Now, this was the World War II commemorative limited edition. Got Iwo Jima on the side of it as well that you see in 2 seconds. Now, this was the first, basically, of the 2 limited edition 1911s that came out. It was quite shortly followed by the Cybergun version. They're really nice. They've obviously got their trades slightly changed, bit of weathering. They're just made to look old as if they've just come out of a hole somewhere after 70 years. They are really nice replicas, and as I say, these were the 2 first limited editions. Since then, we have had an obscene amount with, I pretty much think every day of the war, of both of the wars is now covered by a limited edition. So if you haven't got one of these, obviously this one in front of you now was only limited to 250, and the Uzi was to 1,000. Don't worry, there are plenty more limited editions, inverted commas, out there on the market today. So yeah, that's pretty much my 1911 collection, so we'll move into the Peacemaker. Anyone that's into Red Dead will recognise this straight out as the Catman revolver, but for anybody else, this is a Uzi version of the Colt single action army. Now this is the antiqued version you see in front of you. In my opinion, this is the smartest looking one. A bit of a weathered wood finish, and the grips on it are really tidy. Now it does use a really nice method of loading. Also, it uses brass shells. You put the ball bearings in, and it loads up like the actual Colt single action. So you have to put it back to first click and then rotate the chamber round. A really nice replica, not the cheapest, but if you're into your westerns, this is definitely one to look at. So next up we have my collection of Makarovs. Now these are all Baikal Makarovs of various generations. The first one you see here was my original Generation 2 version, and then obviously going into nickel, and then a couple of the newer ones. Now I could waffle on about these guns for a very, very long time. For anybody that follows us on Facebook or even just the channel, you'll know that this is the gun for me. Now I collect these, you know, if I find a different variation or whatever, I'll pick it up. Now there's a bit of a history between them. They're banned in certain countries because they are incredibly similar and they share a lot of features and a lot of parts with the original 9mm. Here in the UK, at least at the moment, we are lucky enough to still be able to have them. So, you know, I've got 4, always on the lookout for an original Generation 1. So if anybody knows of one, feel free to drop us an email. But as this stands, this is my collection, and I absolutely love them. So here we have my 3 FNs. Now, I have an absolute soft spot for the FNX 45. Now this, in real world terms, is my dream gun. Now I can't find anywhere in Europe at the moment where I can shoot one of these, so if anybody does know, actually let me know. I did look in Switzerland, but I couldn't find anybody with one while I was down there. Now this is my Cybergun version that I've topped off with an RMR, and I actually liked it so much, I then went on to go and buy the black version as well, so I have both colours. And you can swap and cut the slides across, etc. They're all exactly the same parts, so you can change the colour schemes. They're really nice replicas. They are very true. They are full license as well, so you get all the trades, which is quite cool. And then also, as well as these two, I've also got one of the 5.7. Now the 5.7 has got a bit of a weird history. A lot of Americans swear by them. A lot of people hate them. A lot of people want them banned. Basically because it fires a really high-powered, really small rifle cartridge from a handgun, and it's specifically designed to pierce body armour. And obviously this is only a replica. It has no body armour piercing capabilities for anybody in the UK watching and having a small aneurysm. But it's a really good little replica. I do enjoy shooting it. Really good trigger on it. Full plastic, but that's the same as the real one. Okay, so a couple of the more interesting guns. Now this is the Baikal that I've got. Now this is basically a replica of the Viking, which is the current, I believe, service pistol for the Russian military. Now this uses BBs and pellets, which is pretty cool. But what would be the recoil rod is actually the barrel. So the bit that you can see is the barrel. It's actually a huge hopper. Quite an interesting pistol. It's a bit quirky. It's why it stayed in the collection. Doesn't come out overly often, but it's a cracking little replica nevertheless. Now coming up, this was a present. This is actually a Umarex Desert Eagle. Now probably one of the coolest presents I ever had. Typically, much like the real Desert Eagle, it's loud, it kicks, it's huge in the hand. It's really good fun. I was a bit gutted to see that it disappeared off the Umarex website, but I believe it's back. Might be wrong. But it's well worth having a look at if you're into the market for something just obscenely big and fun that you can just plink away. And it is actually not that bad grouping-wise as well, so well worth looking at. Now, next up is the damn Wesson. Now, this is the only other revolver I've got other than the Colt. It's huge. It's really good. I daren't touch it because it gets finger marks all over it. But again, it uses a shell system and it's really good fun. Pretty good on CO2, this one. I'll give it its credit, and it is really accurate, and that might have something to do with the huge 6-inch barrel on the front. There are loads of different versions of it. There's different colours, different barrel lengths, etc. And I believe there's new ones. This was one of the first ones that came out, and I absolutely love it, which is, again, why it stayed in the collection. Now this one here, the Beeman P17, this was a bit of an odd one. I don't really know why I bought it. It's really cheap, little single-stroke pneumatic pistol. It's actually really good. For the money, you cannot go wrong with this pistol at all. As I say, a bit of an odd choice for me, but very accurate. It's got a lot of potential, and I want to try and work out a way of making this gun really quite something. So probably two of my favourite replicas out of the modern pistol era anyway at the moment. Now this is the Umarex Smith & Wesson MP40. Blowback, really nicely made. This to me is basically how air pistols should be done. Did a review of it quite recently for anybody who wants to see. That's on the video. And then also one that I reviewed, in fact my last video, was the HK USP. Now this is one of their newer guns. Again, blowback. I had the original one before, but this is quite something. I've wanted one of these for quite some time. Absolutely love them. as I say, if somebody said to me, imagine a pistol, pretty much the USP is what I'll come up with. Field strips, again, that you see from the picture here, blowback. Everybody that's shot it so far when they've been out with me has absolutely loved it. And last but not least, probably out my favourites, was the HK-P30. Now, I'll put my head on a block a bit here, and I'll say that the trigger on the replica is better than that of the trigger that is on the 9mm version. I fired it. I wasn't a fan. The bore axis was a little bit high. The trigger was incredibly long, obviously being double stage, but that was what it was. Now, this one uses pellets rather than ball bearings, which is quite neat. And it uses the Umarex little 8-shot rotary mags, which again, really good system. A lot of their pistols use it. So once you've got a mag for one, you've got a mag for all. Alright, last but not least for the pistols, these are my two Glocks. Now the first one you see here is the WE G17. And as you'll see, this is pretty much a Glock 17, but just without the trade. So you see that they've just put G17, tactical, 9x19, etc. It's a really good pistol, it's a really good replica, however, it's not an actual Glock, and for years you couldn't get one. Now coming up is the Umarex Glock 19. Now this is the first of the Glock range that came out. I haven't been able to get my hands on one of the new Gen 4 17s, however, that is on like my absolute hit list. I need to find one. But as you'll see from the pictures, they've all got the full trades on it. It doesn't rack, you can't move the slide, it's not blowback. It's a good replica, it's an accurate replica, both physically and accuracy-wise. However, it's just lacking in that realism, which is a bit of a shame. But like I say, there's more of the models coming out. I just haven't quite found them. So let's kick off the long barrels and the rifles. Now this was the Sig 516. Now the less that is said about this gun, the better. If you ever wanted a lesson in how not to create a BB gun, this is pretty much it. The magazine was horrendous. It was very plasticky. Yeah, anyway, let's move swiftly on for all the decent stuff. So from the awful to the truly amazing, this is the Cybergun Mini Uzi. Now this thing kicks like a mule, eats CO2 like there is no tomorrow. However, the full metal construction leads for one amazing replica. I absolutely love it. This is a firm favourite for everybody that comes over. It's semi-auto only. Next up is the HK MP5 PDW. Now this is a Umarex gun. It's all plastic. It's got blowback of a sort. It's a really true replica. I absolutely love it. It's definitely one that looks good on the wall anyway. Shoots relatively accurately, but it's just a plinker. So following on with the carbines and the PDWs, etc., this is the Sig MPX. Now this was the first of the actual Sig Sauers that came out. It came out with the MCX, which had that weird suppressor type thing going on. It's almost like a 300 blackout-esque look. Now this is a very, very short gun that runs on 88 gram CO2 cartridges and actually uses a really neat little magazine system. Now I did a review, obviously YouTube, they don't like the whole magazine system, so I'll just show a picture of it and you can work the rest out. But it's a really good system. It's not that bad on CO2. I was expecting it to be worse, just because of, you know, what it is, but it's built like a brick house. It's a really solid replica, and it comes with flip-up sights, so it's ready to use straight out the box. It doesn't get shown on the channel very often, but this is a firm favourite when mates come round. This is usually the gun that they want to play with or shoot the most. So yeah, cracking gun. So last of the replicas, and again another Cybergun product, this is the AK-47. Now I have it on fairly good authority that this is a Yugoslavian one. Apparently you can tell by the style of the muzzle, flash hider, brake, whatever you want to call it, on the front. Now this is made pretty much of AK parts, just turned into an air gun. As I say, like the Makarovs, these I believe are banned in certain countries, Canada being one of them. This is an amazing replica. Don't buy a deactivated gun if you want a wall hanger. Just buy this. It's cheaper and it's just as accurate to the true form. Now from the replicas to one of the most advanced air rifles I think ever made. Now this is the FX Impact. This is my own FX Impact, as this collection video might suggest. Now I have not done any work to this gun, and it's by far probably one of the most pliable, usable air rifles I've ever owned. Now this thing is at home out on the fields doing insane long shots. I mean, we did the 150-yard golf ball challenge. Or, you know, you'll be in a building working around beams and rafters and taking really short range rounds. This rifle just seems to be able to cover it all. Now I use it a lot out on the farm. It's not something I usually cover on the channel. It's very difficult when you're on your own to film hunts without a team around you, and obviously if you've got a team, it just goes nuts. Now, accuracy-wise, I've seen various people complaining about this rifle in the start. However, I can't fault it. The groupings I've got from this gun have just been insane, and it just seems to get better and better and better. Now, this isn't one of the X barrels. I am going to try and get hold of one of the Smooth Twist X for this gun, just to see what, if any, difference there is, really. They're not the cheapest guns. I know a lot of people saying, oh, but you could just buy a crowd puncher or whatever. However, if you want quality, you sure as anything have to pay for it. And that's what I did. As I say, I worked an insane amount of overtime to be able to afford this gun. And we waited just like everybody else. And it's gone from strength to strength. If you want the best air rifle, really, this is the one to look at. So from the bullpup up to the full-size traditional, this is the FX Crown. This one was actually really kindly supplied by FX Airguns, and I have taken some insane shots with this. Now, this rifle here is only the Smooth Twist version. It's not the Smooth Twist X. However, I've not come across an air rifle before that is as consistently accurate as this rifle here. Now, the shot count for, obviously this is a slightly higher power version. The shot count on this is just insane. The stock as well is by far one of the nicest stocks I've ever held. There are different versions of it. I've gone for a non-adjustable. Obviously, when I'm bouncing around the farm, I don't want the risk of knocking things out of alignment, so I just went with a normal stock here. But for the money, I mean, I don't think there's been enough exposure of this gun. I think people were very quick to have gone from the Impact, then the Crown kind of came about, and then it went across to the Dreamline, and that's where the hype started there. This is a seriously underrated rifle that I don't think has got the exposure that it deserves. So we will be featuring this a lot more in the coming months. Lastly, but certainly not least, is my Weihrauch HW100 KT. Now, of all the guns I've ever owned, this is the only one that I have said, this gun will never leave. For the money, I know they've gone up a little bit recently, however, it's still superb value. For the money, you cannot beat this rifle. Build quality, accuracy, ease of use, consistency. This, for me, is where the benchmark is. Now, this is the gun that I carry on my van at all times. For anybody that knows, I work in pest control, so this is my go-to gun of all of the guns I've ever owned. And as I say, it's not the most expensive, it's not the prettiest, it's not the most high-tech, but this is the one that will deliver consistent results every single time you squeeze the trigger. Now, I know there's people out there that do custom work, and everybody always says to me, oh, what mods would you do to this gun? And the God's honest truth, I have never modified this rifle at all. I changed the silencer just because I was being a bit of a tart and I wanted a nice hug it. And I just changed the trigger springs just to match what I wanted. Obviously, it's adjustable trigger. But please do not play with your Weihrauchs. Out the box, this is what every other airgun wishes it was. So that's the collection all finished as it stands, obviously, for the end of 2018. Now, obviously, going forward, 2019, there's a couple of other things I want to get. Obviously, the new Glocks, etc., etc. As and when they come out, we'll get them to your screens. Now, as you can see, we've had a really, really good 2018. There's been an awful lot that's happened this year. And yeah, it's been a really good year for us. It's been a good year for the channel. And I think going on, forward, we've got a lot of good things in front of us. So to everybody that's been involved in this year, that's helped and made it all possible, a huge thank you. To everybody that has followed the channel again for another year, a huge thank you to you guys as well, because obviously without people watching, without people asking for videos, etc., probably still wouldn't do it, obviously with the way YouTube is. It makes life very difficult. So obviously, you got any questions, any comments, anything you want to see in a little bit more detail, feel free to post them in the comments box below. Obviously, you can follow us on Facebook as well. We're quite active on there, Instagram, etc. But also, if you want to keep up to date with what's going on, we have just gone over the 9,000 subscribers mark. So feel free to subscribe if you want to see more from us there as well. So all that's really left for me to say, guys, is a huge, huge thank you. I hope you all had a lovely Christmas and you have a brilliant new year. And I will see you all in 2019.